It's Shel from Paper Octio Studio. Today I'm sharing with you a paper piecing. It's not really paper painting. It's paper piecing collage done on a 9 by 12 canvas panel board. This is for spring. This is the March Hare. If you really wanted to look into it, there's hares that or rabbits that represent fertility, and of course March 20th was the vernal equinox or the beginning of spring, and rabbits and eggs are associated with that way back from pagan times when there was a northern goddess named Ostara, and her companion was a hare. And then, it's all morphed into Easter, and it's all about spring. And one of the groups that I'm in, the challenge this month was the March Hare, which is all rolled into that. And so I decided to make this collage. And it's got the hare who's gazing at the moon, which is a common image to represent this time of year. So I've got this, it's not exactly, I'm not sure what this stuff is made out of. It's a canvas panel. It's a canvas feeling like canvas on the top, but then the sides and the back are more like a cardboard. So it's not like one of those ones where they take the canvas and they wrap it all the way around and glue it on the back. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure where I got these, but I have 3 of them, and so I decided to use it. So I'm making my illustration on it using my mechanical drafting pencil, which has the soft graphite. This is my favorite way to draw, my favorite pencil, and of course I'll put a link to it in the description box below, along with all the other stuff that I used on this piece. So I'm not really sure what these curly things are I'm drawing. They're some sort of a plant. I'm just into the curls and the swirls, and I guess they're trees. I don't know. They're waking up from winter, and it's whimsical. It's not meant to be anything realistic. It's identifiable, but not realistic, if you know what I mean. So I'm just drawing in my scene. I've got some of these plant tree things, and I've got my hare gazing at the moon, and then some mountains in the background and a little bit of water in the foreground. And my next step, of course, is to start collaging, and this is going to be paper piecing collaging. I know you guys have watched a lot of my videos where I really add color and texture and shading and highlights by using small pieces of paper, but in this case I'm going to cut the pieces out as a whole instead of doing it that way. So I've got these monoprints that I made on my gel plate that you saw me make a couple videos before this one, and then you saw me use them on my Life 2017 art journal page, and then now I'm using them again. These are the same exact ones that it's kind of like a whole series of 3 videos in a row using monoprinting for backgrounds and foregrounds. So what I'm doing here is something you have seen me do before, but kind of for a different purpose. But I'm making my patterns, basically. I've got my illustration on my board, and now I'm tracing over my illustration, and I know the bits and pieces that I'm going to need to collage, and so I'm drawing them onto deli paper, and then I'm going to start my background, because once I put my background on, what's going to happen? All that stuff is going to disappear, and so I won't be able to do it later. So I'm making all my patterns before I even start, including the background patterns, because I know that I'm going to put different prints in different places. I hope that makes sense. So to start out with these larger background pieces, I am just laying the pattern over the paper and then trying to hold them together with my fingers and cutting them out, because they don't need to be that precise. They need to be the general shape, and then I can fit them as needed onto the board. And when I first started out, I didn't realize that I was going to be folding the paper around the back to cover up the sides of this panel. Um, I decided that looks better. Even if it ends up being framed, if somebody frames it or something, I still just wanted it to have the paper wrapped around the sides. Remember, this is deli paper. This is a thin paper with a few layers of acrylic paint on it. Easy to work with. I like thinner papers for collage. You know, after experimenting with different things, this is what I prefer, a lightweight paper. So I'm adjusting this one. I picked this one to be the sky because of the colors, and then also because it had those marks from where I had used a soft rubber tool on the gel plate and made like little marks, and those lines and squiggles and things I thought kind of looked like clouds. So that's the reason that I picked this particular print. And then I've got one little section of hill over there that's kind of a lime color, and I'm going to be putting that same color on the other little section in a minute, but this is pretty self-explanatory. Up at the top, I didn't like that one long squiggle line, and I also wanted it to have a little bit of darkness up at the top, so I'm using a different print just to cover up that top section. And this is where I really start to remember that I want to wrap the paper around the whole board to cover the sides. That's when I started to figure that out. So what I'm using to attach the paper is Liquitex Gel Matte Medium. So it is a thick glue, almost like a paste, and I'm applying it on there with a raggedy old brush. And then as I put the paper on, I'm using, it's actually a rewards card from Panera Bread. You know how you get those cards. I mean, they give you a card and then they give you a little tiny card that you can put on your keychain. So why do you need both of those? So those are good things for you to use for scrapers and smoothers. And since this deli paper was originally my underpaper on my desk and then morphed into paper that I gel printed on to recycle it, and then morphed again into this, it's sometimes a little bit wrinkly, and so I'm really using that card to smooth it out so that it's very well adhered to the board and it doesn't have a lot of bubbles and wrinkles and nasty things. And when I'm doing, like in the case of this, when I'm doing a large piece like this, I start with a little section, glue that down, smooth it, lift it back up, put some more glue underneath it, and smooth it in the next section so that I really get a good, it adheres well. I don't think adheration is a word. I don't know, maybe it is. But you get the idea. It's adhering well. It doesn't have much wrinkles or bubbles. So I continue on my background doing that until I've got my whole complete thing covered. All the edges are covered. All the foreground is covered. And then I move to my pieces that are going to be my focal images. And this one is the bunny or the hare. It looks pretty kind. I don't think it's a snarky bunny. You know, I have snarky bunnies in my backyard. We have a relationship where they eat the plants I don't want them to eat, and I yell at them. And then they give me teenage attitude and just look at me like, what? I don't care. This is food. I'm going to eat it. Anyway, it's a whole thing. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know about the snarky bunnies. But anyway, this one seems to be a pretty kind bunny. So he's not snarky. He's just gazing at the moon in wonder as the year turns over. So winter to spring, he's happy. I don't know. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. The next thing I wanted to tell you is I'm trying to make friends with my glue stick. Sometimes I like my glue stick. Most of the time I hate my glue stick. But in this case, this really works. And this is what I'll tell you. I've got my patterns and I want them to stay put on my paper. And the reason that I want that is because I need to cut precisely. So since this is deli paper, and it doesn't really matter if it's 1 layer or 2 layers of deli paper, nobody's going to know the difference if that other deli paper is sandwiched in between there. Nobody knows the difference. It's thin. I glue those pieces to the backs of the pieces that I'm going to cut, and then that puts the pattern onto the paper that I need to cut out, and it makes it very precise for my cutting. And instead of doing it with this more thick glue that's going to take longer to dry, this is where I made friends with my glue stick, and it's a Elmer's Extreme, but a lot of people use the Yoo-hoo sticks. I just don't happen to have one of those. I don't even know where to get it. Probably Amazon. Yeah, but I got this one at Walmart. It's the Elmer's Extreme glue stick, and I use it to put a good layer of glue on the back of the deli paper that I'm going to cut out. And then, of course, you've got to think about putting the face where you drew. I hope this is making sense, because this is something you just have to think about with your brain. If you put the two back sides together, this is like if you were quilting. If you put the two back sides together instead of the back side and the front side together, my bunny would be reversed. See what I'm saying? So I need to remember, and I almost did that on one of the tree things. I caught myself at the last minute, but I need to put the front glued to the back. Yeah. Okay. So I'm putting my glue stick on there real good, really getting a good coat of it on there. And then I've got to have the front of that where I drew on it sticking to the back before I can cut. Otherwise, the whole image would be reversed, and then it would be on the wrong side. And yeah, anyway, I hope I explained that well. That's an obvious concept, but yet you don't necessarily think about it when you're doing it, because the deli paper is translucent, and so you can't really tell which side is the front and which side is the back unless you think about it. You think, okay, this one's going to go on the right side, so I need to flip it over. Yeah, enough of that. I think I probably sort of explained it. Now, when I'm putting the trees on, because they are so curly, I need to just do it a little section at a time and carefully, because those curl bits don't want to lay down. When I put the brush over them, they want to move, they want to slide, they want to get all weird. So I have to be very precise and careful. Right there, I forgot to cut a section out. So carefully. So I start with kind of in the middle, and then I move to the bottom, and then move up to the top. Carefully applying those. So enough about that paper piecing. Let's move on to the next step. This has been dried overnight. I was tired, so I just left it overnight. And I've got some Faber-Castell Artist Pitt brush pins, and it's a big set of them. And what I'm doing is I'm using a darker color that coordinates with the piece that I'm shading. In this case, it's a dark teal coordinating with this water section at the bottom. And I'm drawing shadows around everything. I don't want to go the route that you often see me do, which is to make black lines around everything. Standard illustration. I was trying to go for a different look. So I pick a pen that's darker colored than the paper that I'm working on, and then I'm using the brush pen, and then I'm blending it with water. So that's a water barrel brush, and the Artist Pitt pen, which has India ink in it, is giving me a few seconds to blend. And sometimes you'll see me do that with my finger as I go, but this time I wanted to be a little bit more precise. I wanted to have more control, and so I'm using my water barrel brush. And at the moment I've got kind of a one with the big long bristles on it, but I do switch at some point into a smaller one that has a smaller point on it. The easiest way to get these days, back when I got water barrel brushes back in the day, ages ago, they only came in one nib tip size. It was just one thing, but now you can get a nice set of of like maybe 3 different round brushes and 2 flat brushes all together. So they've definitely come a long way. So now I have a few different size nibs, and this one's smaller. It's a different brand than the other one. I've tried different ones at different times. So they're a handy thing to have. So now I'm working on the bunny. I've already finished all, well, I didn't do the very top, but I finished all the green layers, putting my lines around everything, and I put the green shadow around the bunny. This project took me 4 hours, and so I have cut out sections of it to give you an idea that something's repetitive, you know. Okay, it's repetitive, I'm going to cut that part. So I'm working on the bunny now, and I've got this taupe. To start out with, I've got this taupe marker, which is one of my favorite shading markers, actually. That one's going to run out before all my other markers run out, and I'm going to have to replace just that one. So I'm putting in the detail lines with this, and I'm still blending. I'm blending the colors, and I'm just basically adding shadow around where bits and pieces of the bunny should be. And then I bring in my white Posca pen, and you're going to see it a lot in a bit. I'm adding a highlights with the white Posca pen, and again blending it with the brush. As long as it's still wet, you can blend it out with the brush. And this particular brush isn't really soaked on the tip. Plus, I'm constantly blotting it on my baby wipe to make sure that I don't have any excess color in it that I'm putting on there in ways that I don't want. So then I'm going through, I'm adding highlights with the white, and then I'll come back in with a darker color in a minute. So as far as the highlights, that's the moon. The moon is shining on the bunny, so you have to think about where would the light hit. And that also helps you to make more rounded shapes, because that might be a hare, which would be a skinnier bunny, but still fluffy, you know. So then there's my darker color. Now I'm adding in even more detail in certain places with a darker color. So this is really starting to make the details stand out so that you can really tell it's a bunny and not just a off-white blob, which is what it was before. I really like how this piece came out. I'm going to scan it and put it in my file for something that I might someday want to make, I don't know, prints or something out of. I don't know. I have a plan. I've been saving some things and scanning them at a high resolution because someday I'm going to open an Etsy shop or something. I don't know. So I might as well keep them. I just can't ever seem to get around to any of that. It takes time. I need a personal assistant. I keep telling my friend that. She needs to come be my personal assistant. Edit my videos for me and run my Etsy shop or something so that I could actually not be doing this for free. It would be nice. But whether that happens, I don't know. Probably not anytime soon. So now I've jumped ahead. The bunny's pretty much, I think he's almost done. I might have added a few more highlights after that. Started working on some of the other things. Now with the plants, rather than making a dark shadow all the way around all those curls, I'm just putting them, the shadows in a dark, the place where it would be dark, like under something, under the curls where they'd be facing down would be a shadow. And then I'll go back in with the white Posca pen and put a highlight on the top of it. So I'm not covering the whole thing like I did in the case of the bunny. I drew all the way around the whole thing. Not doing it on this. Working on the moon a little bit. That the 2 trees on the top part of the moon are actually copper paint, but they're not very metallic-y looking because I did use the matte medium over them, so they're just kind of a turns them into kind of a light brown or something, rusty color. So I'm using a burnt sienna marker with them. And then I'm giving the moon a ton of highlight because it's the moon. It needs to have lots of highlight because it's shining, shining, shining. Then I go back in, highlight my trees. And of course, I'm going to repeat this process with the pinkish tree as well as the other tree on the other side, but I'm going to cut that part out so that you guys don't have to watch the same thing over and over. If you're enjoying this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment so I know that you're here. If I can't tell who thumbs up my video, so if you really want me to know that it was you, you need to leave me a comment, even if it's just a hi or something. Of course, subscribe if you haven't already. Share if you want to. All those things really help my channel because it tells other people out in YouTube land that I'm making something valuable, because YouTube will recommend me to someone else who might be watching something similar. So that's always awesome. And here comes your close-ups. That's it for me. Thanks. Bye-bye.